Eitan Sadigatfer, did you get? Have you gotten your missing shiurim? You're able to stay on track with us?
Not all of them, but I have been watching the YouTube videos. Thank you, Eitan, for posting them. Much appreciated.
Amazing.
I'm right now. Yeah.
Great. We are in the. I'm going to ask you to be really. Hi, Moshe. Hi, Ari. I'm going to ask you to be really careful on your own to keep your place in the Gemara. It takes a lot of time for me to point out where we are. Best you can, put a ruler in it. I'll point it out at the very beginning. And if you get lost, you'll tell me. So in the wide Yud Beis Amud Aleph, in the wide lines, 6 lines down, we start with Amar Rabbi Abau. Anybody not see it? Amar Rabbi Abau. A new section, all related to the Ari Miklat. Amar Rabbi Abau. Ari Miklat lo nitnu l'kfura. They're not given to be buried. And you're going to see in the continuation, what's clear is that they're not meant for Levim to be buried there. If you remember this, we learned this early on in the chapter. The 6 primary cities of refuge double. They also have the status of the Ari Levim. They also are cities that are given to Levim. And in addition, there are 42 other cities called Ari Levim, that are cities of Levim, that have, on a lesser degree, the capacity of offering refuge. It's a little confusing. So it's a total of 48. But of the 48, 6 are primarily cities of refuge that can also be cities of Levim, and 42 are cities of Levim that can also be cities of refuge. But specifically the 6 that we're talking about here are not meant for a burial. The Levim will have to, and the Mefarshim explain, they have to find a plot outside the city. Which anyway, you realize historically that's what we always did. There are problems of Truma, obviously, especially for Kohanim, to have any cemetery in the city. So they find some area outside, and it has to be a certain distance away, and that's where they were brought for burial. We learn it from a verse in the Midbar. It says, "Umigrasheim yu levehemtam v'lirechusham ulechochayasam." Their open areas will be for their animals and for their belongings and for all their chayasa. That's an important word here. All the needs of their lives. The chai. What do we get from that? This teaches l'chayim nitlu v'lo l'kfura, right? That these areas were given for the Levim to live, but not to be buried, right? So not allowed. We're not allowed to use them for burial, right? Straightforward enough. The Gemara asks a kasha, meisive kasha. You're all being so docile and pleasant by not speaking, but don't be pleasant. If you have anything to say, if you want to stop me for anything, by all means, chime in. Otherwise, I'm going to fly. But I don't want to fly at your expense, so you'll keep me on my toes.
Yeah, do you mind?
Basically, we have a challenge, and it's what?
Do you mind, going a little bit slow with the words in the last sentence?
Yeah, great. Do you have the words up until Meisveh?
No, that's what I'm asking. Up until Mesa, from the Gam Rishonim. Kidiktiv.
Kidiktiv, Umigrasheim, they're open areas. We'll be talking about a migrash. In modern Hebrew, it's like a soccer field, but it's not going to be that. It's going to be the area, the open areas. We'll talk about what it means. They'll be for their animals, for their property, and for all their, the chaya is an animal, or they're living beings. But we're going to darshan the living, right? And that's going to be that's the source of the learning here. L'chayim nitnu v'lo l'kfura. They're given for the living, but not for the burial, not for the dead. Meisive, we have a challenge, and actually it's from our Mishnah, one we read recently. It says Shama. Remember, Shama tiet kfurasam. Shama. That's where they're going to stay. And here it is. Sham tiet diraso. There will be where they live. Sham tehe misaso. There will be where they die. Sham tehe kfuraso. And there will be where they're buried. And welcome back, Nathan. There they will be where they're buried, right? So that means that the Rotzchim are indeed buried there, And the assumption now of the question is, hey, if the Levim can't be buried there, certainly the strangers. I mean, these are the cities of the Levim, the interlopers, as it were. The guys who were just visiting because they murdered accidentally. They certainly shouldn't be buried there. So that's the question.
So Rabbi, is this like?
No, that's not a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, is this like a?
Eitan, your audio cut out. Did you hear the whole question? I don't know if it's a kal v'chomer. I think it's just sort of an assumption. We're about to reject the assumption. We're assuming that if it says that Levim should be buried there, that automatically extends to the Rotzchim as well.
Okay, fine.
It's true. I realize in my delivery, I sort of gave it a kal v'chomer twist. That was me, though. So I did a kal v'chomer. I'm not sure that I'm right, though. I mean, that's not in the text of the Gemara. I just added my own parshanut, my own commentary.
How would the Gemara word it in a way where it's like not seen as like a kal v'chomer, like straightforward, like how?
The Gemara is simply vague. The Gemara doesn't say anything. It just says, there's no burial there. And it assumes that no burial, I mean, even though the primary discussion is Levim, but it assumes that applies to the Rotzchim as well.
Oh, okay. And that's, okay, fine.
So the Gemara answers and says, no, Rotzeach Shani. Now, a murder is different than Levim, and that's why they are buried there, unlike the Levim. Why? The Galive Rachmana. Because Rachmana is the merciful one, the compassionate one, that's Hashem, but it's in the Torah, he shows him that regarding him, that he has to be buried there. Again, we said Sham should be buried there. If the Torah went on to say that they should be buried there, well then, so it is. There is a helpful Meiri here and points out that when the murderer is buried there, we learned recently, that's only temporary. When the Kohen Gadol eventually does die, as he does, unless Mashiach would have come, which he hasn't yet, so then they exhume the body and rebury it in his own home city. So in a sense, our original drasha stands. There should be no burial there, meaning there shouldn't be any long-term burial, because the fact that the Rotzeach is buried there, that's a temporary gzeirus akasu. It's a decree of the verse, because as long as the Kohen Gadol is still alive, well, they have to be there. Sham, sham, sham. But since it's just temporary, we allow that kind of burial.
Yeah, but how do reburial is such a, it's such a stringent thing that we only really do it
the truth is that earlier when we learned the idea that they're reburied, that we did that recently, one of the last couple nights, and the poskim derived from our Gemara that there are grounds sometimes to exhume a body. Certainly when it's covered a mace, as in the instance when somebody is reburied in Eretz Yisrael. Famously, the Chidah died on one of his fundraising trips abroad in Italy, and when the state was established in the early years, his body was brought. Maybe you've been to the who would have been there? Shmuel, were you on? Eitan, you did it, but last year, Shmuel, were you on the trip near the end of the year when we went to Har Menuchos before we went out to our last meal? Remember Har Menuchos? The first stop we went to Chidah's grave.
That's right.
I'm sure some of you. Yeah. So then that was the Chidah, and his body was exhumed. Okay. So there are grounds sometimes for exhuming. Of course, that's probably the wrong chosen words. When you exhume, there is no ground because you're digging up the ground. But that's different. The Mishnah said, "Kishem Shiur Galetis," just like the city provides refuge for the Rotzeach B'Shogeg, so too the Tchum, the boundary around the city, gives them some refuge. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of background for the coming sugya so that it can make some sense to you. And it's going to deal with our discussion of the city of refuge, but actually it's really relevant to a lot of different sugyas in the Gemara. It's relevant to Tchum Shabbos. On Shabbos, you're not allowed to go outside your bounds, 2,000 almost in every direction. But it's more involved than just that, because you have Ooh, this is great. I don't have whiteboards to work with, so I'm going to use my hands. You got your city, right? So
Rabbi, we
I'm
could
going to be moving
actually
my hands in a minute, but-
do that. We could give you a
Oh,
whiteboard.
we can do it? I'm sure you can. I don't have the technology, but Eitan, you'll guide us.
So Rabbi, if you go to share screen at the bottom, the green arrow
Okay.
pointing up.
Yeah.
So so if you click it, one of the options should be whiteboard.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Hey, look at that. And what does it show for you? There'll be a...
So yeah,
Okay, I clicked whiteboard. Now what?
Now click share screen at the bottom where like one of the blue. There we go.
Okay.
And now
So
there we go.
I have to do select.
Yeah, we can see you. Rabbi, you can draw.
Yeah, we could see this.
Oh,
Okay, so let's say that's our...
click the draw icon.
Click the which?
Underneath.
Draw. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, this is probably more trouble than it's worth, but okay. How come it's not staying?
Did you click the? I don't think Rabbi clicked it yet. The draw, like there's like a toolbar, so it's like
okay,
right
fine.
on top of the screen. That's an arrow.
Yeah, that's not very useful here. All right, this is way more trouble than it's worth. When I get competent at this, how do I get out of this?
1 second. So you go to the top of the screen and it should say like stop share, right underneath like the green. That's it.
Okay, I'm not sharing with you guys anymore. All right. Let's go back to the primitive system. All right, here's your city, right? You got something called an Ibor, which is a little over 70 almost all around the city. 70 and 2/3 almost around the city. That's an extension. You also can sometimes square the city. There's something called a karpef, which extends the city. And then you can start counting your 2,000 amos when you leave for Shabbos. Okay, that's step number one. So you got those dimensions. Now, in the 2,000 amos, there are two sections. The first 1,000 section is called, Moshe, I gave you the word a few minutes ago, the migrash. Another sugya, not our sugya, the Chazal define that the migrash has to be open. People can't live there, and you can't farm there, because it has to be open and empty right around the city for beauty. The Jewish cities in Eretz Yisrael have to remain beautiful. That's Chazal's definition of aesthetic beauty. You have to leave an open area. That's called the migrash. Okay, nobody's allowed to live there. No farms. Outside of there, another 1,000 amos around, there have to be farms. I mean, people got to live somehow, right? So there are farms around. That's a classic city. And there, you're not allowed to leave it empty. Like the standards are very rigidly defined. Now, that's the background, right? And we see that the whole tchum, that whole area, focus on the last 2 points that I made, the migrash and then the extended tchum. These provide refuge. Now, and he can go there and he can go like this, la 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 la, to the Gol Adam, and the Gol Adam can't touch him. I wouldn't test your luck, frankly, if you're the guy and the Gol Adam has got that. Remember, we said white hot anger. He may go over the boundary. But anyway, we have a contradiction. Raminhi, that's a Raminhu. That's a brisa that seems to contradict our Mishnah. The brisa says Vayoshav ba. The verse says that he'll, with regards to the Galus, the city of refuge that he's in, he'll live in it. Ba v'lo b'tchuma. He's got to live there, but not in the tchum. Well, that seems directly contradictory to our Mishnah. Right? The Mishnah says he can be there and it's fine and it works for him. So the Gemara makes a really logical distinction and solves the problem. It says, Amar Abaye, lo kashya, kan liklot. Here, kan liklot. Our Mishnah is talking about providing refuge. And indeed, both in the actual city and then in the extensions all the way around to the 2,000 amos, good, that will, that'll be your buffer zone, and the Gol Adam is not permitted to touch you there. That's what our Mishnah is teaching. Kan ladur, what the Bryce is saying is that he's not allowed to set up an actual living quarter in the area of the Tchum. He's got to live in the city. That's the Gzeres HaKosov.
Wait, what's
So you can
Lador?
go, I guess you can go on a jog around the city. You can go around that area and still be in your safe zone, but you can't set up quarters. Usually quarters are defined by the place where you sleep. And you usually build some kind of structure, a house, something like that, and that can only be within the city. Yeah, somebody had a question?
What's a Lador?
What's that?
Lador?
Ladur, to live, to dwell. Okay, so we've resolved the contradiction, but then the Gemara is not so sure about this, and it has a question for Rabbi. It says, Ladur, tipukle de ein osin sade migrash. But you don't have to tell me that, because elsewhere we actually learn, we're about to learn now, there's another Mishnah, the Mishnah in Arachim, another Gemara, that teaches us that he can't live there. So what do we need our Brisa to teach the same thing that's already taught in the Mishnah? They don't like these redundancies. The words mean tepukle the ein osin sode migrash. We already derived this from the Mishnah that you're not allowed to make a field into an open area. Right? You can't take the sode, which is the field where you harvest things, can't make it a migrash. Clearly, it can't be a place where a guy lives either. This is not necessary. This is a redundancy, this brisa. And then it says, velo migrash sode. Neither can you take the migrash. Remember the area and the inner ring? You can't make it into an ear. You can't make that into a dwelling place. Can't set up living quarters there. Each place, like I told you in the introduction, has to be clearly defined. The city is where you live. The migrash is where it's beautiful, and the outer circle is where they farm, they harvest the crops. And then it says velo ir migrash. In the city, you can't make it a migrash. It has to be dwelled in. There's an obligation, actually, to build homes. And there's actually, interesting, there are a lot of rigid prohibitions. You're not allowed to destroy a good home in a city in Eretz Yisrael. Jews should live there. It's mitzvah d'oraisa to live in Eretz Yisrael. So if this is all true, then we really already know that he can't set up a home outside. It must be the brisa, our brisa, that made trouble for us. Must be talking about something else. Can't just be teaching us an idea we already know in a Mishnah. Amar of Sheshis, comes from Sheshis to save the day. He answers, Lo nitzrucha ela lemechilos. No, the brisa is indeed adding something that I don't know from the Mishnah. I need it. Lo nitzrucha, I do need it. Ela lemechilos, to teach us about tunnels. Tunnels. What is the idea? Underground tunnels. If the Rotseach would do the bazaar, and he would. If he would extend a tunnel underground to live there, we wouldn't permit him to do that. That idea is not clear in the Mishnah over in Arachim, and it's reinforced now in the Brisa. That says, no, you can't live there in any way, shape, or form. You have to live back in the city, buddy. Nice try.
You mean like live in the tunnel, like sleep in the tunnel?
Right. He has to be in the city of refuge.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not allowed to take up residence in the tunnel outside in the Tlum. Now, this is a very technical kind of Gemara, and you kind of have to wonder, like all the time, we're thinking, what is the meta idea? What are Chazal trying to teach us here? And this is going to be hit home very soon in a big way. We're going to be reaching a real controversial sugya coming up, explaining, the obligations of the Gol Adam, the blood avenger, and what is the Torah trying to get at with all these very clear-cut, rigid kind of rules, where he can go and how he can live and so on. This is not a game. He's not in jail, and he has all of his needs set up for him. We already established that. But he's not allowed to just do what he wants and take this lightly. All of the parameters are very specifically spelled out, just where he can be and just how he's supposed to be, and that's going to play a key role. We're going to see if he doesn't play by the rules, well then he's not even a full person anymore. Right? That's how this is, in this light, it's something of a punishment going to the city of refuge. It's not a game here. And keep this in mind, because that's going to become harshly clear in the coming sugya. Questions? Well, good. Okay, we pick up from the next section of the Mishnah tomorrow. Rotzeach sheyotza chutz l'tchum. And this is the juicy part that I've been referring to. When he goes out of the tchum, what exactly happens to him? More on this. There's Rosh Hashem tomorrow night. And good to see anybody. If anybody wants to hang out, I'll stay online for a couple minutes. Otherwise, have a good afternoon, evening.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I want to say,
Yeah.
Eitan Van, thank you so much for these videos, because like I was trying to review this stuff, and like I forgot what it said, and so I got to look back at the videos and like rewatch it, which was super.
Oh, that's great, and that's helpful for you, Moshe. Like, you're able to, you can rewind
actually
and flip again and
extremely
get all
helpful.
that. Great. Do you have any
Yeah.
feedback of what I could, now that you're watching them and really using them, could I be doing it in a more user-friendly kind of a way, or the way we're doing things actually works well?
I don't know. I mean, I guess because for me it's work because like I'm showing up to the Shiur plus watching the videos, so for kind of me it all makes sense. So
Amazing. Great.
but yeah, so for sure.
Great.
Yeah,
Eitan
thank you, Rabbi.
Sagato, yes. Is that like you're raising your hand, or the picture just froze on you in that position? Okay.
Right.
Anybody have anything?
Ready?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a quick question.
Yes.
So I was wondering, again, just random Mustafa, which you